Hey everyone, welcome to WittCode, where in this video we're going to learn about the JavaScript intersection observer API. And the way we're going to learn about it is by building this simple application here, which essentially has this image 404, and when we scroll down and the whole image goes into view, it changes to a dog holding a piece of pizza. So you can see each time we scroll down, it changes the image source. This is what we're going to be building. So the intersection observer is a browser API that executes a function when a certain part of the browser window or parent element intersects a target element. In simpler terms, the intersection observer API allows us to react to a specific element or elements coming into view. The most common use of this API is to trigger an action when a target element scrolls into view. The reason the intersection observer API was created was to provide a more efficient way to detect the visibility of an element. Previously, detecting the visibility of an element relied on event handlers. This caused performance problems as these event handlers run on the main thread and are fired constantly as the user is scrolling. On the other hand, the intersection observer API registers a callback function that gets executed when the target element enters or exits a defined area. The intersection observer API is also an asynchronous API, meaning that the main thread no longer needs to watch for these intersections. However, it should be noted that the callback function of the intersection observer API is still executed on the main thread. So before we begin, let's create some target elements and a root element. Target elements intersect the root element, causing an action to be fired. So here, the viewport will be the root element, and the images will be the target elements. So let's create our target element images. And what we're first going to do is add some style for them. And then let's just have a ton of image tags with this simple image class. And let's create a folder to hold these images. So something to note is that it's important that the root element is a parent of the target element. And so for us, our root element is going to be the viewport, and each of these image tags are target elements. And this works because these images are children of the viewport. Now let's add some, I believe I have a duplicate body tag here and here. But now inside our index.js file, let's actually require this real quick. Source equals dot dash the location of this. And now inside here, let's now capture all of these images inside an array. So we have all these image tags, or all these here, captured inside this array. And now we can begin to work with the intersection observer API. And to do so, we first need to instantiate an intersection observer object. The intersection observer takes a callback function as a first argument and a configuration object as a second argument. So let's get some code, paste it in here. So we instantiate our intersection observer, which is part of the intersection observer API. And then we have our options, which is the second argument, and a callback function, which is the first argument. So what this callback function receives is a list of everything the observer is watching and the observer itself. Each element that the observer watches implements an interface that describes the intersection between the target element and its root element at a specific time. So, for example, each entry has a property is intersecting. So we could say for each entry of these entries, if the current entry is intersecting, then we can handle it in here. And this is intersecting is a read-only Boolean that is true if the target element intersects with the root. For this demonstration, this is the image tag coming into the viewport. When this happens, we want to change the source of the image. We can access the current target element that came into view by using the target property. So we can do the current entry, access the element with target, which will be the image tag, and then we can set its source to a pizza JPEG. So this target property here allows us to access the image tag itself and then change the source tag. We then tell the observer to no longer watch that image tag by passing it to the unobserve method of the observer, which should be observer. Before we go any further though, we need to specify the viewport as the root element by using the root key in the options object. If we set it to null, then the observer will use the viewport as the root. So if we set root here to be null, then our viewport, or basically the window, will be the root element, and of course our images are the target elements. And next, we can specify the degree of intersection between the target element and its root. And this is a value between 0.0 and 1.0, and is the percentage of the target element that is visible. And this is passed to the threshold key. So we'll set this to 1.0. And setting it to 1.0 tells the intersection observer to fire the callback function when the target element is completely inside the root element. In other words, when these images are completely in the view of the viewport. So for example, this one here may be 75%, 90, 100, and then the callback will be fired. However, for any of this to work, we also need to tell the observer to observe all these image tags. And we can do that in here if we say we loop through our images. For each image, we want to observe that image. And so this observe method tells the observer what to observe. And what is passed in here is what will be available in the callback function entries parameter. So in other words, what is passed here is what will be this. And now we can see actually this is working here because we don't have this pizza JPEG. It's just doing a broken source because I can't find it. But you can see how it's working. We refresh the page, see everything back. If we scroll down slowly, we can see here we're not all the way. And then when we get to a threshold of 1, it'll change the image. Get down here, threshold of 1, change the image, and so on. And if we change the threshold, say from 1 to 0.5, now if we scroll down, you can see it changes before the whole image reaches the view when we get halfway through, and so on.